Hola todos, ¿cómo estás? In this video, I will break down the Photocard in the A-level Spanish speaking exam and basically explain to both myself and you guys how to get maximum marks. I'll go through the mark scheme as I always do in these sorts of videos. I'll talk about how to use the 5 minutes of preparation time you get in the exam. And finally, walk through 2 photocards. Vale, venga, vamos. So, here is the information about paper 3 from the AQA specification. This question is worth 25 marks out of 60 in the speaking exam. And time-wise, it's 5 minutes to prepare and 5 to 6 minutes of talking. You get an option of 2 of these cards, each one covering a different module, and you have to pick only one to answer. One thing to note is that the modules will never be the same as your IRP topic. From looking at past papers, you are usually given one stimulus card from a Year 1 topic and one stimulus card from a Year 2 topic. Each card belongs to one of the 12 modules, and you don't know which modules you will get, so you have to know each one really well. I have a separate playlist on my channel with videos about the independent research project, which is the other half of the speaking exam, so check that out after this video. And this video is specific to AQA, but Edexcel's photocards are quite similar. Now to look at where the 25 marks come from. So 5 marks are awarded for your first assessment objective. This one is for your delivery. Your fluency is not expected to be like that of a native speaker. However, it should follow natural discourse and your pauses should be kept short. And like at GCSE, repair strategies like asking for a question to be repeated is allowed and won't cost you any marks. Next, 5 marks are awarded for your understanding of the material on the card. Material on the card refers to the photo and all the text on the card. To get 5 out of 5, you must also ask a minimum of 2 questions during the exam that are related to the module. As per what it says in the mark scheme, if you fail to ask a valid question, even after the examiner has reminded you, you will be capped at 3 out of 5 for this assessment objective, and only one question will cap you at 4 marks. Acceptable questions will ask for their opinion instead of something factual. So open-ended questions like, ¿Crees que los abuelos deberían hacerse cargo de los niños? Are valid. To meet the requirement to ask questions, a student must seek information or opinion. Asking for repetition or clarification will not meet the requirement. The student's questions must arise from the material on the card and must contain a conjugated verb. Rephrasing or repetition of the printed questions will not meet the requirement. Final thing to keep in mind for this assessment objective is to not ask questions that you yourself can't answer, in case the examiner flips the question onto you. AO3 is worth 10 marks and about your vocabulary and complex language. So when giving your opinion, using higher level phrases instead of more basic stuff like en mi opinión. Also, your accuracy must be high, though minor errors are allowed. Here it is a good idea to use a variety of tenses and moods like the subjunctive. The final assessment objective is worth 5 marks that go for your critical and analytical response. You must show very good knowledge and understanding of the module, and in the top mark band it says students consistently select relevant information to support their arguments. They consistently use appropriate evidence to justify their conclusions, demonstrating a very good evaluation of the subtheme. Evaluation means sort of giving a balanced argument and then reaching a conclusion. I've put all the mark bands for all 4 assessment objectives here if you want to take a screenshot or pause the video. Okay, so I mentioned that you get 5 minutes of preparation time for your stimulus card, but what should you do in those 5 minutes? Well, firstly, you would have already read the card fully, as you get an unlimited amount of time to decide between both the stimulus cards you are presented with, so you would have read both of them very well. So once you choose the card you want, and the 5 minutes begin, you can jump immediately into making notes on the questions. The very first thing I would do is scribble down some sentence starters or phrases, perhaps in the subjunctive mood, or generally just fancy complex structures that you want to use on the top of the page. Obviously, you can use the notes sheet in your exam, so if you have a small bank of these phrases, you can rely on them during the exam, making sure you get high AO3 marks. On a similar vein, write down some key vocabulary for this module, and this would make sure you get high AO4 marks. Now it's been around 45 seconds, begin bullet pointing answers to the 3 questions. The examiner will ask you those questions in that order, but they will likely ask supplementary questions to really get the most out of you. And bullet points is the best method as writing full sentences will take too long. Once you've bullet pointed notes for the 3 questions, write 2 or 3 questions that you can ask the teacher. As we saw earlier, part of AO2 is you have to ask the teacher at least 2 relevant questions. And that is, in a nutshell, how I would use my 5 minutes. It's not a lot of time, especially compared to the 12 minutes you get at GCSE. Okay, the time has come for us to look at actual stimulus cards. This one is from 2018. The 7692 at the top means it is an A-level paper, not AS. Really quickly, if you're sitting AS exams, so real external exams at the end of year 12, you'll get 2 stimulus cards, part of your speaking exam, and there is no IRP. The next card I'm going to do is actually an AS card, although I don't think there is much difference between them, so you can practice with AS cards and treat them as A-level ones. I'd recommend you to pause the video and spend 5 minutes prepping this card. As I will talk about later when I go through specifically how to revise these, practicing prepping cards is very useful. Now I'm going to read through the questions and spend just a few minutes verbally explaining the different ideas that pop up into my head about how to respond, and then type up a full answer for each question. In the exam, obviously, you wouldn't respond with a big paragraph, but for this video, that's what I'm going to do, to get some practice in myself and show you guys how I would respond. It's not going to be a perfect response, and there probably will be mistakes and things that I'm missing, as I haven't revised the year 1 stuff in a while. Pero vamos. So the title is Perjudican los móviles nuestra salud. La adicción al móvil tiene repercusiones en la salud mental de la población juvenil en España. Provoca alteraciones en el sueño y depresión. So, problemas mental. El 75% de los trabajadores en España padecen fatiga visual. El uso constante de estos aparatos tecnológicos tiene consecuencias negativas para los dedos, la espalda y el cuello. So that's fingers, back and neck. El uso de auriculares con el volumen muy alto daña nuestra audición. ¿Cómo reaccionas tú ante esta información? So the first question is asking you for your opinion on this. So what do you think about, like, does it shock you that there's so many physical and mental problems with technology? And en tu opinión, ¿qué pueden hacer en los países hispánicos para protegerse de estos problemas en el futuro? So reducing screen time, that sort of thing. Lastly, ¿qué sabes de otras desventajas de las tecnologías en el mundo hispánico? Well, things like cyberbullying, fraud, scams, todo eso. Vale. Now it's time for me to answer these questions. I will time-lapse through this bit and talk about what I've written afterwards. Okay, I've spent 5 minutes answering those 3 questions the best I can. Let's look at the possible content from the mark scheme and see what the examiners advise talking about. This is the possible content directly from the mark scheme. Let's see how much stuff I didn't mention. I've had a read through these points and I recommend you to pause the video and do the same, because I won't be reading it all out loud. For the first question, I didn't mention the statistic of 70% of Spanish workers suffering visual fatigue. I could have and should have said something like, me choca que tanta gente padezca fatiga visual. For question 2, I mentioned parents should buy simpler phones, like non-smartphones, but I could have gone further to say parents should limit their children's screen time. And the government could set up an awareness campaign, una campaña de sensibilización. The third question is always the one that is most broad, and for this card, I could have gone into more depth about the dangers of fraud, chat rooms, and stolen identity. Here's a good time to mention any statistics you know. In my module mind map, I do have a few statistics which you should learn off by heart. Okay, let's move on to one more stimulus card. Vale, Here is one from the AS paper. It's about Module 4, La influencia de los ídolos. Just like last time, I will read through it, make a few notes, and then write my answer. The title, La caridad de los famosos, the charity of celebrities. Julio Iglesias, cantante y compositor, es el artista español que más discos ha vendido. He is a singer and composer who has sold the most albums. Es solidario y se preocupa por los demás. He's caring and cares about other people, or worries about other people. Ha donado sus vaqueros favoritos, his favorite jeans, a una organización benéfica. So he's donated his favorite jeans to a charity. La organización los venderá y utilizará el dinero recaudado para ayudar a los pobres. So the charity is going to sell that pair of jeans and use the money, the collected money, to help the poor people. Preguntas. ¿Cómo reaccionas tú ante esta información? Well, obviously it's a nice thing to do, and it will help raise money. Next question. ¿Crees que los famosos del mundo hispano hacen suficiente para ayudar a los desfavorecidos? Do you think celebrities do enough to help the unfortunate people? No, siempre pueden hacer más. They can always do more. Y la última pregunta, ¿hay famosos del mundo hispano que no son buenos modelos a seguir? So just list a few people who are not good role models. For example, Luis Suarez, just to name one. Vale, now I'm going to write the answer to this question. Okay, that's my answer for each of the 3 questions. Now it's time to look at the mark scheme for this photocard. Okay, straight into it. Question 1. Students may express agreement or disagreement with the points listed, adding reasons why they consider famous people do or don't have a role in helping other less fortunate people. Some students might want to refer to the final point by giving examples of other famous Hispanics who have helped society, which I did do by mentioning Gael García Bernal. La segunda pregunta, the mark scheme has listed celebrities with charitable foundations. I mentioned Shakira, which is probably the easiest one to talk about. And lastly, a good critical response might refer to the fact that there have been some famous people who have been bad examples for people. For example, Lionel Messi for tax fraud and Maradona for drug abuse. Students might also want to refer to Hispanic musicians, e.g. Pitbull, whose lyrics can be inappropriate for young people. One thing I definitely could have written about is reggaeton and their inappropriate lyrics. Reggaeton is the genre of music I mentioned in my mind map, and their songs are often about violence and stuff. At the bottom I've put the examiner report for this tarjeta, so feel free to read it. I know this video is getting quite long now, but the very last thing I'm going to talk about is how to revise. There's 2 things I'm going to say. Firstly, learn the content about each module. As you've seen from my 2 walkthroughs and from the mark scheme, knowing the topic really well is super important, and one way you can revise this is through my module mind maps. You are all probably already aware of this, but for those who aren't, on my website astarspanish.com/A-level, I have mind maps for each module for year 1, and the year 2 ones I'm posting as I study each module in school. These mind maps summarize each module really well, so print them out and start memorizing and familiarizing yourself with them. Secondly, practice. Use both AS and A-level stimulus cards to practice answering the questions. That's all I've got for this video. I really do hope you found it useful and now feel confident to answer the photocard. I will be focusing more on A-level videos as I prepare for my exams, so subscribe for those. Adios.